Have you ever think about changing the world? I believe we were all born to accomplish greatness. I mean, we all want to make change, right? But something is missing. Something is missing. We are organizers. We are advocates. We, the people, resist. But something is missing. The unrealized power. I want everyone to repeat after me. The unrealized power. We all have a vision of how we wish the world could be when we think about equity, inclusion, love, patriotism, and civic engagement. Today I'm going to give you the secret of the change we all wish to have, our unrealized power. So what is our unrealized power? Why is it important, and how is it going to affect or impact us? These are the questions that I'm going to answer, but first, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am an international student from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. 2 years ago, I came to the United States of America to study geology. During my journey here in the US, I became passionate about three things: leadership, social justice, and civic engagement. During last election in my school, even though I cannot vote, I helped register more than 2,000 students to vote. So now, as an international student and a student leader, I felt very powerless regarding the fear of the unknown and the confusion of my friends and family. At the same time things were getting intense here, back home in Congo, it was a chaos and still a social chaos. So I started pondering questions, and one specifically came up a lot in my head. What can I do? What can I do? What can we do as a society, a part of what we have always been doing to implement real change? You know, there are always two aspects in life, in everything that we do: the visible and the invisible aspects. The visible is something that you see, something you can measure the physical or direct impact of it, while the invisible is something that you don't see. You don't measure its direct impact at the moment. I'm looking around and I can see that some of you must be wondering, where am I going with that? But you will know. When we talk about changing our world, speaking up, and standing up, we usually associate them with voting, protesting, debating. But what if it wasn't just about that? What if there is another piece of the puzzle, an invisible part? Here is where the concept of visible and invisible come into play. August 28, 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. delivered the I Have a Dream speech that we all know during the Great March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. This is an example of the visible concept, the march itself and the speech. The reason why this is visible is because you can see and measure the impact of the event. Visible aspects. But what you did not see or maybe heard of is those two men, Philip Randolph and Bayard Rustin. They were the first to start planning the march in December 1961. Philip Randolph was one of the leaders of the civil rights movement, and he was the head of the march on Washington. Bayard Rustin was an American leader in social movement for civil rights, nonviolence, and gay rights. And he was the chief organizer of the Great March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Invisible aspects. Let's take another example. February 11, 1990, Nelson Mandela is released from prison after spending 27 years behind bars for speaking up and standing up against apartheid. For those of you who don't know, apartheid was a system of racial segregation, was a system of institutionalized racial segregation and discrimination in South Africa. In 1994, 4 years later, Nelson Mandela became the first black president of South Africa. This is also another example of the visible aspects. Many of you probably knew about this great figure, but what you did not know about is this man, George Bezos. George Bezos was a human rights lawyer, and he was part of the team that defended Nelson Mandela. People say that he helped Mandela avoid the death penalty by having him not appear to seek martyrdom. invisible aspects. We can see that without those invisible aspects, the visible one wouldn't be possible. Think about me right here. I am the perfect example of the visible aspects. I mean, I'm here, looking good. You all get to listen to my great speech, and my face will probably go on YouTube, which is super cool. But what you did not see is the process behind, the hours of work with the organizing team to have all of this happen. We now all have a better understanding of the visible and invisible concepts. So, what happened when you apply those two concepts with the concept of speaking up and standing up for people? Here is what happened. The visible and invisible aspects become the visible and invisible power. You see, we all have the power of speaking up and standing up against the oppressor and for the oppressed. On one hand, I define the visible power as what we say speaking up is. Things such as voting, debating, protesting, lobbying. And on the other hand, I define the invisible power as what speaking up would also be. Things such as education, researches, community and relationship building, conversation, open-mindedness, and self-check. Today, we can all agree that voting, debating, and protesting are great ways to speak up. They are effective, powerful, and legitimate. So, what if in addition to voting, we added education and researchers? We need to be able to make our own research on topics that matter for us and make sure that solutions proposed are backed up by facts, not alternative facts, just facts. When it comes to voting, we need to focus more on ideas and policies rather than candidates. What if, in addition to protests, we added community and relationship building? Let me explain myself. In January 22nd, 2017, we had the Women's March going on in all over the country. Here in Portland, the police estimate that 100,000 people show up to the Women's March, which was historical and amazing. So now, can you imagine the impact if every single one of the people that attend the Women's March decide to donate $1 to organizations that help advance the living condition of women? Or even better, if they volunteer 1 hour each of their time to help women in the community. Let's just picture this. 100,000 people volunteer each of them 1 hour. It will be equal to 100,000 hours. When you divide it by 24 hours, we get exactly 4,166 days of community service, which is equal to 11.4 years of community service. 11.4 years. What if, in addition to public debates, speeches, we added something as simple as a sincere dialogue or conversation? A group of people with opposite ideas trying to find a way to get along with each other. In November 23, 2016, a couple of friends and I organized a workout in my campus to support undocumented students. When we were doing the protest, we had a group of students that did a counter-protest. So right after the protest, we invited them to a dialogue. It was private, intense, and sincere. By the end of the conversation, we found common ground, came up with agreement, and it was amazing. We started reaching out more to them whenever we were organizing events. You see, that's what the invisible power is about. And this is how powerful our voice could also be. There is a time and a place to exercise the visible power, but the invisible power is the one that can be expressed every single day of our life. Sometimes it can be as simple as a conversation. Sometimes it can be as simple as a smile in your face. So now you all have the knowledge and tools to make the power that was once unrealized a reality. And I'm going to leave you with that sentence. For us, all of us, to make substantial changes, we have to exercise both the visible and the invisible power. Thank you.